So I won't have technical difficulties. I'm an adventure person, not a technology person. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I got another one that we need to put this one on too once
Playing.
everything else gets.
Oh my gosh.
Come on. Don't swear. We're streaming.
We're streaming, okay.
Are we really streaming? Are we really streaming?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's just going through my phone, but I do have a mic. Shouldn't be too bad.
Should have gotten all my words out before.
Yeah. Yeah, Jess has got as much of a lavatory mouth as I do. And I use the word lavatory mouth with intent because I say the same words, they just sound more refined with my accent. So come on. It's the third time it's tried going through it, hasn't it? Oh boy.
This gets like 99% and then it kind of just
Yeah.
pops.
So when it's up on there, but it's from mine, it's not going to go through to this.
It will. We'll move it over. So, yeah.
Because this was being a display for mine, but it wasn't going through to that. Yeah, this is not happy either. So what people with Macs done before for the most part?
Honestly, not a lot of people use Macs to do this. The last time we did, we just had to basically convert it to a PDF and show it that way.
Right. This video. It's not gonna work.
Yeah, and that person lost their video, so they had to kind of just slide through it.
Yeah. This is not happening. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think. Could I? Do you? Hey, plan. Let's try it. Oh no, this is not what I thought it was. This is not you. No, not gonna work. Into.
There's no down here. I'm not seeing anything down here. Other than switchboards and
Yeah.
master controls. What is it doing now?
Same thing. Same thing. So that. That's USB-A, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know if if you upload it, you might be able to
Wait, that's
actually
what-
play it all back from like Google Docs or
that's
whatever.
what we're trying to do at the moment.
I'm trying to do that.
It's,
Should work.
when it gets to just shy of and then does not finish. Come on. I don't have a USB-C to USB-A flash drive.
Plug that again and see if you can drag it over.
Okay.
Like anywhere. Just see if it drags.
So it's not an extension of my computer at the moment. When that gets restarted, it becomes an extension of my computer, but it doesn't play into
Oh, okay.
the other I know of. I might just have to go old school.
Right. It's nowhere on our drive either.
I can get it onto my drive, I guess. I get this. Let's do that. That's. Let's go. Yeah, I can't see the top of my screen. That's not working, so I'm just going to go there. So often I use this will upload to my drive.
Should just be able to drop it in.
Why can't I see an upload button plus? Oh.
You does.
It's getting this. So I will sign it. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it did. Okay. Did it download anywhere again, or has it started?
There it goes.
Alright.
Voila. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, we'll get right.
You ready?
Yep. Is that going? Yeah.
Alright.
Okay.
Let's just
And that is not in here. That is going to be.
clip this on
Okay.
to wherever you want. I mean, somewhere around your collar would be good.
Can I move that? Two of them. That
Yeah,
important.
once for the streaming, once for the recording.
Okay.
And then just whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for your
Be
patience.
And happy Pi Day. All right, it's 311. Doctor for you. All right, so welcome to tonight's segment of the faculty lecture series. For those of you who do not know who I am Jess Gallardi. I am professor and director here, and I coordinate the lecture series. So thanks for attending tonight. Keep an eye out for our next lecture, which will happen the first Thursday after spring break, which will feature Dr. Michael Liebiger of psychology. That will be April 4th, 6 p.m. in this room. So tonight's event is presented by Wil Rickards, an instructor in the OES program in the School of Kinesiology and Health Sciences. Wil was born in North Wales, and that is steeped in its rich maritime, mountain, and river folklore. Still haunted by a nagging request to get a real job, he first became a teacher after receiving his bachelor's with honors in environmental studies in teaching leisure outdoor education and technology from North Wales, and then became a professor of adventure education after earning his master's degree in physical education from the University of Northern Colorado at Greeley, and immigrated to where the sun shines for 300 days and snow falls for 100 days, which is here in Colorado, that we experienced in part. Today,
both, didn't you?
It was an experience. During more than 25 years as an outdoor educator, he worked Scottish winter seasons, taught canoeing, climbing, kayaking, and skiing throughout the United States, Europe, and Australia, and regenerated the University of Alaska Anchorage's outdoor education program. After a 14-year hiatus teaching technology, he was very excited to be back doing what he loves with an incredible backyard and an employer whose visions include reversing inequality. His biggest adventure so far is fatherhood, following in the footsteps of Jean Piaget. He experimented on his child. He is now seeing the longitudinal results. Things he likes to do include aging gracefully and skiing, often telemark, aggressively. He is happiest outdoors with a good view, good company, good weather, and snow, and the residue of self-powered adventure, sweat, a manic grin, and wild eyes. The lecture tonight is going to be about, in his words, why adventure is important, and how do we incorporate it into education, and what happens when we do. At a time when we know significantly less about employment's future fabric than our parents did, imagine what our children are facing. Can we? For them to forge a path in this climate, we need to prepare students to work collectively for the common good, be resilient, solve problems, and deal with uncertainty. This is with an anecdotal journey through a lifetime of curiosity, experimentation, and employing adventure to make a significant difference in his journey, which includes the role as parent and work as educator. Expect to walk away pondering how adventure aligns with the Adams experience and with some tools to make it happen. So help me in welcoming Wil.
Thank you. Do I just tap the screen? Is that gonna? No, a little button there. We go with the mouse clip. Fantastic. Next. So I was originally just going to show this slide, drop the mic, leave. I think Abhishek has got it absolutely on point. But that's kind of missing the point. There's a lot more to it. So I want to talk a little bit about initially changing perceptions. I think this is the most important thing that we can do as teachers, professors, and if my OES 200 mates were in here, they would hopefully be talking about taking it further again and changing behaviors. They would, if they'd been listening, be talking about Walsh and Gollins and the outward bound adventure model. But I want to just show you when I first came to this. So I grew up in North Wales. It's beautiful. 10 miles from where I lived was the highest mountain in Wales. It's called Snowdon, or if you're Welsh, Yr Wyddfa. And I've been up that mountain so many times, I was bored. I just did not appreciate it anymore, which is very sad. Luckily, I was in the rescue team, and every now and again I get to go up in a helicopter. The first time I flew over the same mountain in a helicopter, the way I saw the mountain changed completely. And it was pretty instrumental in the way I thought about things. So what I want you to do is I want you to stand up for a second, because I want you to feel what it is like to change a perception. And I want you to take something away from this. So do me a favor, put your finger up in the air, look at it, and describe a clockwise circle with your finger. So just spin it in a clockwise direction. Okay, now ever so slowly, keeping the finger spinning the same way, bring it down until it's by your navel. So keep it spinning in the same direction and look down on it. And tell me what direction it's going in. First time I saw that, my head blew. And why is that important? Well, think about how many arguments you've had with someone where you've been talking about your truth and you're absolutely certain about it. And you're having this absolute head-to-head with someone who is equally certain about their truth. And perhaps your truth is the same. You're just seeing it from a different perspective. That, for me, is our jobs as teachers. We need to get people to see things in a different perspective, from a different perspective. So, don't sit down quite yet, because I want you to do something. And that is, I want you to introduce yourself or say hi to at least 2 other people. If you don't know them, that's even better. But when you do it, I want you to look them right in the eyes, and I want you to smile. So, yeah, say hi to someone, preferably someone new. 10 seconds is a long time. It's a good learn, right? I have a thing called the 11-second rule, where I will wait for 11 seconds of silence when I ask students a question and they don't give me an answer before I move on. So I'm going to move along, and I'm going to guess that for some of you that's very easy. For some of you that's quite difficult. Can you do me a favor? Can you put your thumb out in front of you? We're going to use the thermometers. Is that easy or is it uncomfortable? Looking someone right in the eye and smiling at them. Easy or uncomfortable? For most, we got a variety of thoughts here, and you can look around the room and you can see it. Some people find it more difficult than others. Again, it's a case of perspectives, right? Come on. So I got a couple of questions for you. First of all, do you see yourself as adventurous? If you do, I want a peace sign. But please, I'm from the UK. I want to see the front of your fingers, not the back of your fingers, because it means something completely different in the UK. And I was told not to swear, so I'm not going to. But just show me the front of your fingers. If you don't consider yourself adventurous, that's okay. So just show me an okay sign. Okay, I love it. I'd love it if you very quickly told someone close to you what you think adventurous is. You've just said you're adventurous or not. So what do you believe it is? I'm going to give you about 30 seconds and I'm going to tell you what I think it is. Before I do change the slides, this gentleman here is called Dave Harvey. He's an old colleague of mine, and he would never define himself as adventurous. Hence why he's looking so scared at the moment, or at that moment. If you ever saw him on a motorbike, you might think completely differently. It is funny how we consider things based on our own perceptions, which goes back to what we were talking about before. But he is now Dr. David Harvey, and he has contributed so much that British adventure education is unbelievable, and I'm impressed. But let's talk about a definition. When we moved up to Alaska, Kai, who's here, was young. He was a year old when we moved up. And my job title there was Professor of Adventure Leadership. Fantastic job title, right? But not 8 years before we went up there. Adventure Leadership, sorry. Warren Bennis had said there was 850 definitions for the word leadership. If the word adventure was used as much, there would have been equally, if not more, definitions of the word adventure. I hated every single one I read. It did not ring true for me. And I've got to profess, so I've got to have a definition, right? You cannot be a professor without a definition of what you do. So I took a stab at it, and this is what I came to. Adventure is the feelings you gain from an uncertain outcome. For me, it is both visceral and palpable. I know when I'm having an adventure. I feel it. And the one ingredient that is always there is the uncertainty. Why do I think this is so important at the moment? Well, if I look at my great-grandparents, right, they knew what they were going to do for the rest of their life when they were 14 years old because they were going to follow in their parents' footsteps. I look at my grandparents, and they had the Second World War to contend with when they were sort of in midlife, and that was pretty unsettling. My parents, my father had 10 jobs, I would imagine, if that. And they were children during the Second World War. I've had considerably more jobs than my father. But what I cannot get over is I do not know what my son is going to do. I don't know what the work environment is going to look like. The amount of uncertainty in this world at the moment is huge. You take a city. My great-grandparents knew what it was going to look like their whole life. I drive up I-70, and things have changed since the last time I did. I look at technology, and I'm struggling, obviously, but things are changing phenomenally fast. And at the same time, maybe due to media pressure, we keep children in. How many of you talk about, oh, when I was young, put on your favorite accent, we used to walk uphill both ways to and from school. But you talk about staying out until it got dusky, and when you were called in for dinner, and you were out completely free, doing whatever you wanted to do. But I would argue that most parents don't allow their kids to do that right now. I would argue that schools have to teach to the test because they're given money based on results, and consequently, they do not teach. They show kids how to take a test. They are not dealing with uncertainty. They are going to be crippled with the amount of uncertainty that's increasing in our world. So adventure to me is massively important because it's one place where we can teach how to deal with uncertainty. Who does things with uncertain outcomes? How about the people who had their thumbs at the halfway point? Or the people who showed me the okay sign rather than the peace sign? I think we all deal with uncertainty. We all deal with adventure. Adventure is not always just hanging off a cliff by your fingernails or throwing yourself off the same cliff with a parachute. There's a lot more to it. What's happening here? I want to go back. I want to go. So there were definitely some phases of my learning about adventure. And I want to share those with you because as you get older, you definitely realize the different stages of your life. I'm sorry about the way this is looking. But that word learning is probably not the right word for this. It's probably understanding. But I wanted to put it in because I wanted to share a little side route with you. The Welsh word for to learn is dysgu. And he would put in a sentence like rydw i'n dysgu or dwi'n dysgu. I'm learning, I learn. Anyone want to guess what the Welsh word for to teach is? It's the same one, dysgu. Dwi'n dysgu, I teach. So potentially you have to give it context to show what you're doing, right? You got myfyrwr, which is a student, or athro, which is a teacher. Dwi'n dysgu fel myfyrwr, dwi'n dysgu fel athro. Potentially, dwi'n dysgu fel myfyrwr means I learn like a student. Dwi'n dysgu fel athro means I teach like a teacher. Or does it? This is where that whole thing of perspective comes into play. I see the world differently to you because I have a different language. My psyche has been impacted by the language I speak. You don't have that advantage. When I think of learning and teaching, it is the same act. You think of them as two distinct acts. Again, little detour. But where were the 4 stages of my learning? Well, they came at 4 times. I went to boarding school at 8. I didn't particularly like it. I was abused at 11 and was very, very angry throughout my adolescence. I was not a very nice person to be around. I got to climbing when I was 14, and it changed my life. I remember that first climb like it was yesterday. It absolutely changed my life. And what I loved about it was I was with this group of people who, just like me, had probably suffered some kind of trauma, did not know that it was an available condition, did not know what the result of that. I mean, kids now will tell you that if you've got a trauma, you're going to get depression, right? I didn't know that back then. Like, I didn't know I had ADHD. That's great. I didn't get Ritalin because I didn't have an available condition. But there was a whole group of us, and we all had similar kind of experiences, and we consequently behaved in similar ways, and we were looking for the same thing. It was a form of therapy, and it was a beautiful time for me. It was also very easy to measure success. I was either strong or I wasn't. I could either get up a climb or I couldn't. And throw in the fact that I met some incredible role models and life was good. I think about the number of surrogate parents that I met through climbing. Some of them were rogues. It didn't matter. They all taught me some incredible things. And I love that close-knit community that I experienced. Not only did my mother used to say, when are you going to get a real job? She also told me I should be a teacher. And of course, the same person that was telling me to get a real job, I was not listening to. So I wanted to just keep on climbing. But eventually it became apparent that I should become a teacher. And what I found with teaching was that just like as a climber, I've been healing wounds by sort of using the therapeutic nature of the mountains, as it was in that case. When I became a teacher, I was healing wounds by helping people that were in the same boat as me when I was their age. And again, very formative time. It wasn't so easy to measure success. I didn't know what the results were because they often weren't going to show themselves until after the kids had left my care. Thankfully, I still keep in touch with a lot of them, and I kind of know what had happened, or what has happened. But here's a really neat thing. In the UK at the time, if you wanted to teach in outdoor ed, you taught in local education authority centers. You had to be a qualified teacher. You then gained whatever vocational qualifications you needed to work in various sort of activities. But what that meant was someone would teach in an outdoor center for 40 years. Can you imagine the quality of the mentoring and the championing that I would get by having these old folks who'd been doing the job for at least 35 years, sharing the nuances that they learned over their career? It was an amazing time and certainly fast-tracked what I did. I came out here because I had been educating in college environments, and I thought I might as well get qualified to do it. So I went up to Greeley, and as soon as I got my year's worth of coursework done, shot up to Leadville, worked at CMC on my student visa. Life was good, and this girl followed me, and we ended up getting married, and before too long, child appears. And like Piaget, who had been practicing on other people's kids for a long time before he got his own, and then that's where his big sort of findings appeared. It was basically experimenting on his own child. My son had the same misfortune or fortune, depending on the way you look at it. I knew what climbing had done for me, and I knew what I wanted to bring to my child's life based off that. It was even harder to find or measure success. I feel lucky that he's now 19 and I get to see sort of more longitudinal results, and I'm pretty happy with them. Sometimes I want to slap him around the ears, but for the most part, he's all right. And but one of the things we started doing was, as I realized just how capable he was, just how capable any child is, when we would go out and do things, we would bring other friends of his with us and a father to try and get other parents to sort of experience just how impressive little kids can be when they're outside. When it was about 9 years ago, I had a broken leg and I couldn't work for 3 months. I was laid up and feeling pretty bored. I started a website where we started to bring that sort of thinking out into the world. And then about 2 years ago, we were in the UK, and I always go back to the old centers, visit colleagues. And post-COVID Britain, outdoor education had changed completely. Local education authorities had sold off the centers. And suddenly, it was no longer a career, a 40-year career. It was what it is most places. You come in, you do it for about 2 or 3 years, you realize you're never going to earn enough money, you're not going to have a pension, and you leave, right? Which is, and so what was happening, or what is happening, is I'm one of the last of the people that was raised in the golden age of outdoor education, and I suddenly felt this massive burden to pass on the legacy of what I had learned working in these incredible places. And that's what brought me here. It had been 14 years since I'd worked in outdoor education. I kind of burned out, but I really could not let that slide any longer. So that's me, but it's not really about me. This is about students and what they gain from it. So I was out last 2 weekends with a group. We've got Anjali and Emiliano behind us. And there were 2 of the 3 that came out. This is a sad. We need to get more than 3 people in a class. I need your help.
And I could just look outside, and it was just this flat, even lighting, but it was still dark, but you could see almost everything. It was bizarre, and I loved it.
I feel like you don't need drugs to expand your mind. Just experiencing that pushed you past it. You're really comfortable. Because I definitely was pushed past that those trips that we taken.
Do you want to tell me who you are, first of all? My name is Stuart Valley.
I'm Anjali Friedman.
I'm Emiliano Montoya. What's the class? Winter Recreation Essentials.
Now, you signed up for a 1 credit class.
really. You have to work for everything. Nothing comes easy, as you have said a couple of times.
For me, it's been about kind of like adapting and taking in your surroundings and also expanding your mental fortitude on the entire like expedition and anything that like comes your way because like the cold, for example, how the cold can be like overcome by just thinking about one thing and really overcoming it mentally and physically. Tell us about last night. What was this?
I got wet, and which doesn't mix very well with cold weather. But yeah, if I just like imagined and didn't like worry about it being like how I was feeling, then I was okay. I was like, I'll get through the morning.
When we set off, it was pretty. It wasn't. I mean, it was getting dark. There's a lot of sort of fear going down because we had made it to a campsite. We had to work really hard to get the sled up. Big sled, by the way, up to our campsite. It was that last time. I was flying somewhere to camp. There was a lot going on. Having done that, the person pulling the sled for that craziness was me. I decided to throw myself into the deep end for that. And I'm pretty proud of myself for sticking to it the whole time and pushing through because in the end it was definitely worth it. But in the moment it was definitely difficult to keep going. My body kept gassing out and also my mind too. But pushing past that was really good overall for learning and for just overcoming stuff. If there was something you were going to tell someone else about why we should do a class and involve some kind of
I'm on the swim team, and I feel like we have some differentiation between people. And I feel like experiencing something like this with your teammates or just anybody will help you grow closer and yeah, as a team.
I think just again, just expanding their minds because a lot of people don't put themselves in that kind of situations often because it can be uncomfortable mentally and physically. But doing so is really rewarding in a lot of ways. So I think just experiencing that for yourself or with a mentor is really beneficial overall. You're feeling rewarded. Definitely.
So they talked about three things. Emiliano talked about seeing the beauty in the world. Stu talked about finding out what you're capable of and realizing that that's where fulfillment lies. And then striving to bring that fulfillment from then on. There's another piece. Angeli talked about bonding and true bonding, really close bonding. So I want to do a little activity. I don't know if you've seen one of these things, like great. It's called a power stick. What it does is it conducts electricity through people. And I want us to see if we can make a circle where everyone's holding hands and see if we can get this thing to work. I'm going to put myself somewhere around here. So yeah, we're going to hold hands with people. So we just got to try and create a circle. Yeah, as long as you hold on to the silver. Once that circle is finished, oh, does the camera want to see this? Probably. Okay, right. Now, there's always one problem child in the group, and I'm going to say Mr. Marty is our problem child. I want you to let go of someone, and it stops. So the thing is, as a group, we can do one of a couple of things, right? We can either encourage Marty to join in, or we can have Alex so give Marty a big hug and bring him into the group. Yeah, and let's get a hug on the other side as well. And hopefully, if Alex holds hands behind Marty's back, yeah, sure, we can get it going again, right? So this to me is a great metaphor for what happens in adventures. Everyone plays a part. If they don't, it all falls apart, but they always do. I've never had an adventure with kids or students where people did not realize they had a part to play. It may have felt like it was a small part, but everyone played a part. And if someone couldn't, then someone would bring them in regardless. Think about how many students sit around in their dormitories not being quite as involved as they know how to be. And if we could just bring them in, they would feel part of something much bigger than themselves and would consequently feel all the good feels. I'm going to carry on. Oh, shoot. So, adventure does create community. There's no doubt about it. I believe that there are 8 skill sets, actually probably more, that adventure naturally develops. And I do want to go through each of these very quickly. There's dreaming. I find that before I go on an adventure, I am dreaming. That's a mixture of imagining what it's going to be like, breathing life into a dream to make it happen. And very much like an athlete, I will vision things. And the more adventures I have, the more this goes on. There's a really good article in the New Yorker in 1999 called Physical Genius by Malcolm Gladwell, and I love this quote. When psychologists study people who are expert at motor tasks, i.e. people who do brain surgery and things like that, I get Yo-Yo Ma in there, the cellist, and they find that almost all of them use their imaginations in a very particular and sophisticated way. Adventurers do the same. Planning. It blows me away how many people perceive what I would call dirtbags, adventurers, as being lazy and inept. And nothing could be further from the truth. Their ability to plan things is second to none. Their motivations are different. So they get judged on what they look like, not on what they're capable of. And, you know, if I think about the number of expeditions I've planned for 3 people on the back of a beer mat, or the incredibly sophisticated spreadsheets I've put together for more complex expeditions, that skill set is what every employer wants. Who doesn't want someone who can take a group of kids to a foreign country where they don't speak the language and bring them back safely? Or someone who can plan the food for, 10 people for 30 days? They're really incredible skills. Being present. I think about meditating, right? It's taken off lately. I was in Kathmandu a long time ago and bumped into these people, and I asked them, "What are you doing here?" They said, we're doing a course on transcendental meditation. So I said, so why come here? Well, it's really cool. I said, well, what's cool? I said, well, we have these out-of-body experiences. We literally are sitting on our own shoulders, looking at ourselves. I said, I can do that. And they looked at me skeptically. I said, no, I can do that really easily. They said, have you been trained? I went, no. But if you climb 200 feet without a rope, coming towards the top end of your ability, you are going to, I can guarantee it, get to that place where you're sat on your shoulder, talking yourself through what the next moves are. You are completely separated from yourself. People perceive folks who are into extreme adventures being adrenaline junkies, and I think they're missing the motivation. When someone is doing something that requires that amount of being present, being here, being now, that's what they're looking for. They're not necessarily looking for a jacked up heart rate. I can do that in the gym. But when I'm doing something that truly requires me to be so present, that's what I'm there for. I'm there to escape all the thoughts and everything else that goes on in my life. I want to be here. I want to be now. And again, so very, very useful. The brain is just another muscle. If you train it to be present, you can be present in other situations. Navigation. It's a beautiful art, and it's a very, at its heart, it's quite simple. You take a representation of what you think is going to be, usually it's a two-dimensional one, and you then compare it with what is actually going on. I like to teach map and compass because when you are looking at navigation, what you do is you take a map and you start to predict what is going to happen, and you create a sort of checklist. And as you walk along that checklist, you go, yeah, I'm there, I'm there, I'm there, I'm there, and you stay found. GPS, on the other hand, you're just figuring out where you are. It's a reactive form of navigation. Map and compass is a very proactive form of navigation, and consequently why I like teaching it. But again, if you use it as a metaphor, how cool is that? I'm going from A to B. These are the things I'm going to do along the way. If I do those things, if I see those things, I'm going to check the box. It's a secret to life, right? This is huge. Managing risk. I mean, adventurers have to do this all the time. And again, it's a simple process. Risk assessment is basically a case of recognizing the hazards, the things that can go wrong. And then for each of the hazards, you assess the risk, which is basically deciding what's the consequence and what's the likelihood. It's different for everyone. If I take a baby up into a tree and I drop it, the likelihood is it will bounce. If I take grandma up into a tree and drop her, she will be dust. The consequences are very, very different. The likelihood is also very, very different. Both of them need me to take them up there. But generally, if you get yourself into a situation, say I'm at the top of a cliff, and it's over 30 foot. If I fall down, I'm going to start thinking about what's going to happen. Well, I'm definitely going to break my ankle, or I'm more likely to break my legs at this point. What's that going to cost me? Well, that's going to cost me 3 months without being able to do the things I like. It's going to cost me, depending on how good my insurance is, somewhere between maybe $500 with a deductible, or $250,000 if I'm uninsured. So it's always different. But what you're trying to do is constantly assess what is going on at any given time and manage it. The biggest part of this is there's always a risk of gain and a risk of loss. If the risk of gain is not worth it, do not bother with something that's going to be where there's going to be a risk of loss. So you're just constantly measuring. And again, life skill. Savala was out telling me I had to that she would give me her trust until I broke it. And I was thinking about, well, I'm going to be talking about that tonight. If you tie into a rope with someone, at the end of the day, you're either lifelong friends or you're walking exactly the opposite direction. There's something about adventure that polarizes this trust piece. There are so many unwritten rules in adventure. It is unbelievable. And they all basically revolve around looking after people the way you want to be looked after. But you very quickly learn what it takes to be trusted, because that is where you create the relationships that last a long time. Here's another one. Bad things do happen, and accepting that is really, really important. You know, we live in a world where Western medicine has kind of it's kind of put cotton wool over us with regards to the human reality. You go to a developing country and you learn very quickly what adversity is, and everyone's okay with it. They're not abhorred by it. We have a very strange relationship with death over here, and it comes down to this sort of, we put it off as long as possible. And what I would say is that in adventure, you very quickly learn that things do go wrong. Maybe it happens to you, maybe it happens to your friends. But you are going to, if you do adventurous things for an extended period of time, you are going to know people who are no longer with us. You're going to know people who got exceptionally hurt. You've probably got hurt yourself. If you're in this room, then you haven't been lost quite yet. But yeah, I think it's a very healthy thing to accept adversity, because then you learn how to deal with it and learn how to move on from it. All the adventurers I know are supremely optimistic. They do find solutions. And it's because they have to. If you've accepted adversity, the next step is to figure out how to move on from it. You know, if you go out without a rain jacket and it rains, it's nobody else's fault. I'm not going to wait for someone to come and pick up the pieces. I'm going to accept that I'm going to get wet, and the next time I go out, I'm going to make sure I pack a rain jacket. And that has been the best part of teaching in the outdoors, because ultimately, you tell a group of kids, it's going to rain today, bring a jacket, or you'll get wet and you'll get cold. They don't listen to you. Adult doesn't know what he's talking about. They ignore you. They get wet, they get cold. Fantastic. You don't give them a hard time. You just let it speak for itself. Next day, you give them another instruction. Maybe they listen to you a little bit more or not. They experience that you're only telling them the things that they need to know, and then they start to listen to you. At that point, boom, I'm in. I'm there trying to manipulate their hearts and minds in the shape that I want them shaped. You know, it's as long as my intention is pure, right? It's a good thing. But it's so very cool to experience this in the outdoors. The picture, we were filming a hut trip, and we went out to get a sunset shot. It was a beautiful evening, but the snow was really horrible. I'm skiing down. Friend's got his drone going behind me, and I can hear the buzz of angry bees behind, and I can feel that my skis are about to get hooked up and I'm about to go into a tree, and I don't want to be filmed going into a tree, and I'm just getting really nervous and anxious, and suddenly I hear a scream, and Em goes, "The drone's in the tree." I'm thinking, "Thank you." And then I crashed, and so I go back up to Em, and there it was, this little drone. You can see the red light about 30 foot up in the tree. We can't climb the tree. It's getting pretty dark. And thankfully, we had a whole heap of avalanche probes in the hut and a bunch of duct tape, and we're playing this game where the avalanche probe is swinging out, and we're trying to knock it down, but we got it down. Like I say, it's all about finding solutions. I'm going to give you a bonus one. Storytelling. I know you all love stories. It's the best way to teach. When I teach a child to tell a story, actually, I'm going to step back a bit. I think about my own youth. 16, I'm a climber. I would visit climbing cafes. I would visit climbing bars, pretending to be older. And I would listen to the stories from the climbers I would hang around with. And they would inspire me. And I would go out and try and live some of those stories myself. And before too long, I'm telling those stories, and someone else is listening to them, and they're being inspired, and they're then going out and living those stories. It's this cycle, and it's beautiful. But the reason I teach a child to tell a story is because once they can tell a story, it is not that much of a leap to realize that they are the author of their own story. As a parent, the hardest part for me was encouraging my son to tell his story without being a ghostwriter. I did not want to be a ghost author. Think about all the times where you are spinning the hamster wheel. Things are going wrong in life. You've given up authorship. Pure and simple. You can blame the story on something else, but you are always potentially the author of your story. So teaching a child to do that, teaching a student to do that, I think is incredible. And adventure has got a whole history of great stories. So what happens when you do develop these skill sets? Another good story, there's Kai with a pair of cardboard skis. They were the first skis I made for him. This was part of my huge manipulation to get him into skiing. We got duct tape around around these cardboard skis, put these little hoops for him to put his feet in, and he would shuffle around the carpet when he could just walk. I'd watched him. If you've seen a child grow up, initially they're like an amoeba on the floor, and then they start coming up a little bit upright, and then they're sort of pulling themselves up on things, and then they're walking ape-like. You've seen a little baby, it's walking like this. And then their hands come down, and their feet go straight, and that's when I made him the skis, right? So he's shuffling along the carpet. It was part of his journey to skiing. It's a telling story in that they are still around. Just saying. So what do we learn from these skill sets? Well, we learn how to find fulfillment. We learn how to stretch ourselves. And we learn that fulfillment comes when you've worked really hard for it. I think we figure out that fulfillment often involves some kind of service. It's not usually about just looking after you. The world becomes very special because you like playing in these places, you want to protect them. I know of a few politicians who need to learn that lesson. We also tend to want to look after those less fortunate than ourselves. I don't know why. That tends to be something that happens. You feel your own strength and you want to help other people to find theirs. We become leaders. There's no doubt about it. The more time you spend outside, the more you become a leader. I think this is huge. We look at people not because of the way they look. We look at people because of what they bring to the world. We look at their humanity. And I like to think that equity and inclusivity often follow that. There's a bit touch. I don't know I could convince everyone on that at the moment, because let's be real, adventure is very much a white male dominated sort of thing at the moment, and I want to see that change so badly. But doesn't that seem to align with the Adams experience? Doesn't it seem that adventure could be a large part of the Adams experience? I like to think so. And I think the last two in particular really are something that we can help with. So as those conversations sort of get re-engaged, I would love for the word adventure to be thrown around in them. But I thought I'd sort of come to an end with some more thoughts from students. These three, oh boy, I'm out of order. What's going on? Hang on. Here we go. Nope. I've lost the slide. I'm sorry. But I will finish with this.
The more comfortable you are in the setting, even in a classroom setting, to learn, the more you're going to learn, really. Because I spent lots of times in like actual classrooms learning about actual school stuff like English and math, and I wasn't very comfortable, so I didn't really speak out and I didn't really learn much. But here in this one classroom, I'm able to be like, whoa, I don't understand anything you just said. Please help me. Just because I feel a lot more comfortable, just the environment, the teacher, the students, just goes all better here.
This was I've lost. I'm going to tie it up there. I've lost this. I've lost the video. I will put it up online for you. I think the biggest thing we could do as sort of teachers, professors, is to hold a safe environment. Jace used the word comfortable. I don't think comfortable is the right word. That's all right. I think I like students to be uncomfortable. You asked the two in the back of the room. I don't think they were comfortable a lot of the last 2 weekends. But I think they felt safe. And when you feel safe, you do feel comfortable to do things even if you are uncomfortable. And I think that is pretty key. I'm going to throw it out there. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions they want to share? Is there anything that you're sort of thinking about that leads to? Well, I am going to be crusading. I'm going to be pushing for adventure to become top and center in a lot of what goes on here. The fact that you're in this room would suggest that it's something that you agree with. And I need all the support I can get. If anyone wants to have a conversation about it, you can get hold of me through my email, or I'm in the Rex. If you go through the front door, turn left again, you get to my office. I hope you don't mind dogs if you do come to see me, because the dog is often there. But I would love to carry on this conversation with as many people who want to hear it. I think it's a very important conversation. I think if we go back to what we were saying about how uncertainty is a reality and we've got to train people to deal with it, I can't think of a better place. So if you want to be my ally, if you want to talk more about it, please do. I would love the company. And thank you. Oh, and if anyone wants to go ice fishing on Saturday, there's a meeting, pre-trip meeting going on in about 15 minutes. Ice fishing. You are so welcome, Alex. You gonna get to that meeting?
Thank you, Will. Yeah,
Yeah.
I am. It was good to see Baggins in the
He's
in the
always
movie.
he's always out.
Yeah,
He's-
cool.
he's,
And thanks for. I know Emiliano. I don't know any of the others.
right.
But it was really good to see. That was up at Big Meadows.
That was a
wasn't
Big
it?
Meadows. We went up there 2 weekends in a row. The first time on cross country skis, and the second time we camped up there. So it was good. Yeah.
Cool. Very good.
Mhm.
All right. See you later.
Take care, Mark. Have you met Kai?
No, I have. I've seen you, Kai, and you're a bicyclist. I think. Haven't I seen you on a bike?